Hi everyone. My name is Idedu, and I will be taking you through the risk assessment framework for national electronic identity systems we are developing together with Professor Casting and all of the colleagues working on this project. So before I proceed, here is the agenda of my talk. I will be taking a brief look at the national data identity systems and the cybersecurity framework, some of the open challenges, the stakeholders in this ID, and the impact assessment framework we are developing. So national identity systems allows people to assert their identity in various ways, and it has been quite a very useful system, especially for allowing universal rights, financial inclusions, and allowing people to have fair access to benefits and services. However, this system is also faced with a lot of risks and challenges, such as data misuse, impersonation risks, the systemic ID issues, the life cycle risks, and many other risks. And our objectives for looking at this framework is to develop a framework for assessing the risks and impact of compromise on the national electronic identity systems. This is an example problem we came to capture. Like, for instance, if you are trying to quantify the impact of rates for a system that just went down 2 minutes, affecting like 2% of the population due to power failure, for instance, if you're asking the government that are the provider of these systems, the government might say, okay, we only went down to 2 minutes, and we are still within 99% of our service level agreement, which is like a low cyber rate. And to the citizen, like let's say 10,000 people have been affected, and they are unable to access maybe critical services. The impact of such power failure is quite huge. But to the government that are actually controlling these identity systems, they might say this is a low cyber rate. So we were thinking, how can we have a framework that we use to better quantify the impact of compromise or maybe failure on these identity systems? So let me just talk about briefly what I mean by risk assessment. Risk assessment is quite a way to build a kind of secure systems, and it answers these 3 key questions. That is, what can go wrong, and what is the likelihood of something going wrong, and also what are the consequences. And there have been quite huge numbers of different risk assessment framework, from the NeID, ODL, COSO, and many more. However, the unique features of national data identity systems actually prevented us from applying this cybersecurity, this IT cybersecurity framework directly into the identity system. And we have to try to address some of the challenges before we can apply this. And there are some limitations to this typical risk assessment. Like most of these assessments are risk assessments are always limited in scopes, in which they focus on just the 2 aspects of the whole systems, and that sometimes the results are not effectively communicated. And likewise, there is lack of foresight because most of them focus on the current risks and they don't adequately address the emerging or future risks. And likewise, most of them often overlooks the broader context in which these risks occur. And they also suffer from subjectivity, and likewise lack of context. And with the quite usefulness of these data identity systems, it is quite important to develop a deeper understanding of the dynamic risks in this ecosystem. And apart from the existing limitations of the national identity systems, there are also some specific challenges of risk assessment in these ecosystems. For instance, the national identity systems are always multi-layered and very comparable populations. So it's quite difficult to have a uniform risk assessment for all the identity systems. And likewise, the far-reach and diffuse nature of the effect of compromise also presented a great issue for assessing the impact of this on this ecosystem. And likewise, risks are not also transparent in common manners, and different people have different perspectives for the risks in this ecosystem. And also, there are problems of scarce data in which most of these nations that have even conducted the risk assessment of these systems, the information is not readily available, and it's quite difficult to understand what decisions or what ideas are behind their assessment. And what does this mean to the key stakeholders of the ID systems? There is a lack of inclusiveness and transparency. Most of the stakeholders don't actually understand how the risk assessment is being done. And there is incomplete risk awareness. And also there is potential gaps in the risk mitigations if the stakeholders are not quite informed about how the risks are being assessed. And also there is an uncertainty in decision makings. So for us to be able to better assess the impact of risks on the key stakeholders, we first of all try to understand what are the key stakeholders in the ID systems, and we narrow it down to 3 key stakeholders. That is the end users, which are the data subjects, and the government, the provider of these ID systems, and also the private sectors or those people relying on these IDs to offer services to the end users. And likewise, we tend to understand what are the key requirements of the stakeholders in the ID systems. So for the end users, most of them are quite interested in the system being trustworthy, and also the system being reliable and secure, and the system to be inclusive, transparent, and they actually wanted to have control over the choice of their and how they share their data. And for the government is more concerned about mass adoption, like easy governance framework, cost-effective and sustainability. And also they wanted to ensure they could secure the sovereignty of their assets. Likewise, for relying party wanted to use an ID system that's quite flexible, lower liabilities, and also interoperability with their existing systems. So looking at these different requirements and also the different roles of these key stakeholders, we distinguish 3 types of impact. That is impact on the government, which is the provider of these ID systems, impact on the end users, and impact on relying private organizations. And for us to understand how a compromise will affect the government, we look at some of the existing literatures that try to understand the key government values in investing in IT systems. And we look at 2 main ones, which is the public return on investment and also the value measuring methodology. And we tend to look at the different values that these methods are developed, and we map these different methods, these different values, and we come up with 6 key values for the government, which is the economic, the reputational damage, the social impact, the political impact, the impact on citizen rights, and the operational impact. And also we do the same for the end users, in which we identify 6 key impact areas as well. That is economic, private impact, right violations, physical impact, psychological impact, and the social impact of any compromise. And likewise, for the relying party, we identified 5 key impact areas. That is the economic impact, the reputational impact, the physical impact, the social impact, and the operational impact. And with all this knowledge of the key stakeholders and what the values and their roles, we proposed a risk assessment framework that leverages all this our knowledge of the key stakeholders. So the way the framework works was this. The first thing we need to do is to understand the threat event and see the impact of this threat event on the key stakeholders. We have identified 3 key stakeholders, that is the government, the relying parties, and the end users. And from the literature review we have done, we have tried to understand what are the key values of the government, the key values for relying parties, and the key values for the end users. And by understanding what the values, we could estimate the impact of any compromise on these values. And then looking at all these 3 key stakeholders, we could then try to quantify the overall impact and also look at the estimate the likelihood of the threat event and come up with a risk level for any compromise. So like what most of the framework have been doing, they have been trying to use a Likert scale just to try to have a level of impact assessment for the different key risk factors. and we tend to use the same ideas, and we have a scale of 3 different impact measurements. That is the severity of the impact, in which we have the insignificant impact, the moderate, and the severe. And likewise, using the key values we have identified from literatures, we tend to have an impact measurement scales in which an assessor can use to actually assess how they have been affected by any compromise based on the values we have identified in the literature. And this is just a table showing the relying for the impact scales for the relying private parties. We also have a table for the government and also a similar table for the end users. And what we now introduce is we try to prioritize these different impact areas, because we, as I said earlier, some of the challenges of actually quantifying the impact to national identity systems is the diverse nature and the different multi-stakeholder effects or impact on the different multi-stakeholders that are based. So for an identity systems that are being used for voters' registrations, the government might try to prioritize the rights of the users compared to an identity system that is used for maybe social benefits or something else. So we introduce these impact prioritizations in which, for you to be able to better quantify the different impacts, you need to be able to assign a weighted value to these values, because each values have different weights based on what the government thinks or what the individual thinks are more important to their missions or the key objectives. And we introduce a formula for the overall impact calculations based on the weights assigned. That is, we tend to sum the impact level of the different objectives or different values for these key stakeholders, and we tend to multiply it by the weights that have been assigned or the priority weight that has been assigned by the assessor. So for instance, for the relying party, in which there is an economic impact, there is an operational impact, there is a physical impact, there is a reputational impact, and also there is a social impact, we tend to have a weighted value, which is W1 to W5, based on the priority set by the assessor. And because due to the different use of these identity systems, the weight might be different based on what the government thinks are important. And we introduce this flexibility to allow government or all other key stakeholders to prioritize which impact area is more important to them. And by using this, we can calculate the different impact areas for the key stakeholders. That is, this is just the formula for the relying parties. We could also calculate the one for the end users, and also try to calculate the one for the government as well. And as the traditional definition of this, calculating the impact is just one way. You also need to also try to estimate the likelihood of the threat event. And there are different factors to look at when trying to evaluate the likelihood, which will be the vulnerability, the threat actor capability, the motivation, and historical data. So using this kind of different factors, we estimate the likelihood of the threat event, and we use that together with the impact already calculated to actually use that to estimate the risks on the identity systems. And in summary, we have been able to propose a multi-stakeholder framework that not only consider the impact on the ID users, but also try to consider the impact on all the key relevant stakeholders. And by doing this, we are trying to increase the transparency of how the impact of compromise is being assessed on these systems. And we are trying to ensure we create more awareness, and also we are trying to improve the existing risk mitigations by not just by extending the existing impact quantifications from the narrow approach of focusing only on one or few stakeholders, and ensuring that we could incorporate all the key relevant stakeholders. And we also try to make a risk assessment a cooperative and collaborative approach, in which not only a single stakeholders will be responsible for this, but also try to buy into the input of all other stakeholders. And yeah, what next? All what I've just showed now are based on secondary research, in which we tend to look at existing literature to see how we could develop a framework for quantifying this impact. And the next phase now is to engage with relevant stakeholders and also try to listen to their own perspective and see and understand their own perspective of things and try to validate the applicability of our framework into the real life scenario. And also we intended to capture some of the focus of these key stakeholders when they are trying to assess risks to their identity systems and try to understand things from their own perspective. And likewise, we wanted to also work to identify and implement a corporate risk mitigation strategy for the NeID systems by leveraging what you could see from the secondary sources and also the contributions from the experts in the identity sectors. So that's just the update.